Welcome back to episode 2. So if you've got this far, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's really good.
This is leadership, actually. It's not love.
It's not love, it's leadership.
So we're going to talk to each other today and quiz each other.
Yeah.
Just to get to know each other so that, we're asking guests and hopefully the audience to share bits about their life and career. So it feels right and proper that we do that ourselves from the get-go.
I agree. And we are matching the furniture again.
I said I would.
Commitment to you as guests.
I know, it feels like yesterday since we were doing it.
It does. It certainly does. I love it. I love that we have a uniform.
Well, let's get into this. Let's get nitty gritty.
Yeah.
I can't wait to find out loads about you.
And you. Where did you get your jacket from? Start with that.
I'd have to look in the label. I've got no idea. But one thing I will share is this is the badge from my mum's funeral.
Is it?
And really special, actually.
Yeah.
So I remember kind of putting it on the day and it felt really symbolic. And I can't bear the thought of taking it off yet. So, Mum, if you're listening, you're with me as well.
I love that. Can I share, actually? You probably don't know, but today is 4 years since I lost my mum too. So that is something that really resonates. So hello Lee's mum and hello my mum. So
they'll be watching.
There we are. Another thing we have in common.
We do.
Love our mums, but they watch us from above, don't they? So yeah, big thing actually. That's a big thing. How do you think your mum has influenced you, Lee, actually, and got here today because of her? So that's a good question.
It's a great question. It's really formulated in my thoughts. My mum was everything. She showed me the way, the path, and actually I think a lot of my leadership style comes from my mum, not in terms of telling you what to do, but just guiding you along the way.
Nice.
I think it's the inner exec coaching me as well, and really spotting a leader versus micromanaging, and both can be important, management and leadership, but actually, and she'd do things that were just sneaky. She'd just prompt the question that says, can you justify yourself?
Yeah.
So she wouldn't tell you what to do or what not to do, but it's like that little like voice on your shoulder or bird on your shoulder going, are you doing the right thing here?
Yeah.
Or she'd remind me of a story of my granddad, and he used to always hold the doors open for other people, and all she'd say is, do you open the doors for other people?
I love that.
And it's the small stuff. It's not necessarily the big stuff, but in every ounce of my being, my mum is definitely the guiding light, and she still is today. I will. That's how I live my life. I actually set my own consultancy, Fenton Place, www.fentonplace.co.uk, and on socials. In honour of my mum, actually, because when she passed, it was really important to me that I carried on her legacy.
Yeah.
And she's a lady that didn't have a lot but would give everything. She was a lady that really brought a community together, and she sacrificed a lot to bring up 3 kids, and she gave us everything. And to me, the biggest joy, the biggest privilege is it's genuinely my purpose to repay that, and that's if I can help others like she helped people in lots of different ways and guises, then that's really what I'm about. What about for yourself?
Oh, Leah, she sounds fantastic, but a lot of that resonates. So I'm one of 3 girls. My mum brought us up mostly on her own. She had a terrible start, as and my parents went together because he was a very violent man. He actually tortured my mum. But so she brought us up. She moved us away from that situation when I was 14 and my sister's a couple of years younger, and made a vow, like a commitment, that she would dedicate her life to us, that she wouldn't bring anybody else into the scenario. And I'm not saying that's the right thing for her. Actually, later on in life, I really reflected, and I wish, and my sisters wish, she'd probably not made that commitment and met somebody and was happy again. But we were her life, and so I've learnt a lot about that. I think even more now she's no longer here. The moment she went, life changes, doesn't it? And I see a very different perspective. But the things I learned from her, she was really resilient, and her strength you know, to be, and the courage to be able to take, you know, to her girls to a different part of the country and escape, was huge. And I only really appreciate that when I became a mom, and you know, and later on, I think that's really important. So her resilience, and she went through lots of tough times, and kind of, you know, something happened. She always had this belief that something would come from somewhere, and it always did. You know, when she had no money in whatsoever, she would go and play a game of bingo. That wasn't her thing, but you know, and all of a sudden she'd win enough to pay for some food for the week, or you know, those sort of things. So she did have that ultimate belief that something would come along and it would work itself out. And I do believe that, you know, even in the darkest days. But the other thing was really important, and probably that was important in leadership and in life, but her non-judgmental way of looking at the world. Even though she'd been through a lot of tough stuff, she didn't judge people whatsoever. And you'd find that, you know, she'd be at a bus stop, or she, you know, people felt like they knew her and they'd tell her a life story, you know, and we'd have kids knocking on the door and asking her to go out to play, you know, and it didn't matter. And I think that was inbred from her family as well. So it didn't matter what colour or creed or, you know, whatever was going on, she did not judge in that way. And I hope that I've taken some of that on board, and I hope that I've given that to my son as well. And I think that's really important, you know, how do you kind of have the patience and the bit more of an open view to not judge is really difficult. So, you know, we all have our biases, but she did her best to, I don't even think she had to work at it, it's just naturally that she accepted, and she would accept us as well. She never asked us to be anything or in particular. She kind of went with it and tried to, you know, that real acceptance of who we are and, you know, where we want to be. And I think that's why we all turned out okay. We were okay, I think. So a massive part of my life.
And I'm sure she was such a special lady. Just listening to that, right, it gives me goosebumps, and it really resonates and comes through.
Yeah.
You know, just the way you speak about her. And, you know, there's a lot then. I almost think about legacy.
Yeah. In
this instance, you know, well, you know that someone else has had a legacy that is living on, and that you maintain or whatever. What do you want your legacy to be? And that's not from an egotistical point of view.
No.
It's saying day in and day out, what do you want people to know you for?
Yeah.
When you're not in the room, what do you want them to say?
Yeah.
And that's the bit I find always inspires me, always makes me think creatively, and I definitely not got the answers to it all, but no. You know, it's, and I go back to, and my family will laugh at this, but I go back to the song Whitney Houston, Greatest Love of All.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter how you live, but, you know, do it your way, and that way you'll keep your dignity. And I think it's so vital, and I heard Barbara Nicholas talk about it when she was nominated recently to the Hall of Fame as a nominee, and talking about Jack Nicklaus and how, but what was lovely about that was how she was absolutely pivotal to his success, and she says, and vice versa. And you know, it's those stories, isn't it? It's that connection. It's like, who are you? Yeah. So if I was to ask you, you know, if we were down the pub.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
We're going after anyway.
Yeah, but we'll have a cheeky one. I'm alcohol free at the minute. How would you describe Lisa?
Oh my God, Lee, that's a big one, isn't it? So I'm going to describe it. It sounds like I have a plug, but I did write a book.
Did you?
Yeah, I've written a book. It came out last year.
What's it called?
It's called The Worst Self-Help Guru Ever.
Love it.
Yeah. And it came about because it was after my mum had gone, actually. So mum died, and it was very traumatic the way that she went. And it made me have a lot of visions about stuff I'd chosen to forget when I was a child. And so I wanted to do something about it. There's a whole thing about legacy, you know, that really resonates with me, because that is my purpose. Is, you know, I do for her and for myself and for my son. I think it's a really important thing. But I went and got some help for the first time, you know, to how do I deal with these things that I don't want to remember, and what do they mean? And in the whole round of doing that, I was working with an amazing counsellor called Jasmine, love her. And she said to me one day, she said, Lisa, you have all these vision, you know, you're working in, I was doing quite a lot in well-being stuff and stress and burnout, and just like, you have all these great ideas, and you're creative, and you come up with ways forward, but something stops you. Like, why do you do that? And I'm like, well, you know, I'm not necessarily in the career that I want. You know, I'm a single mom. At the time, I hadn't, you know, I'm heavier than I want to be. I don't like the way I look. I've got no money. You know, how can I help and tell people how to be in the world? It's like I'm like the worst self-help guru ever. Like, she was exactly that. And she laughed, and I laughed, and we laughed with that. And she said, well, maybe, like, people might want to hear about that, because isn't that life? Isn't that just being human? And I was like, oh. And like, you know, and she said, I think maybe you might write a book about that one day. And I did. And I, you know, that came to life. But when you say, so what is it about me? That I'd like to say I'm human, I'm real. I fall over in life, you know, many times, but I'm resilient, I'm strong, and I think about, you know, what did I learn in that? How can I be different? What could that mean to others? You know, how could I use that in a useful way so other people don't have to fall over?
And they will.
They'll do their own stuff. You know, and so that's really important. Humour's really important. So laughing about it, you know, having a little bit of fun about it is really important. That's me. You know, I use humour a lot. It was probably a coping mechanism when I was a child and going through, and, you know, but I feel that's a real strength now. I like that. And relationships and connections are really, really important. And I think I like to be inspired or inspire others. That's really important to me. And that's kind of that stuff. But I guess, who am I? Well, most importantly, I'm a mom of my 7-year-old. And he is my everything. And he teaches me lessons every single day. and I love that. And I feel that we're both on this journey. It's not me being his mom and teaching him. He is teaching me so much stuff. We mirror each other a lot around our learning journeys. And we're like, how are we going to deal with that? But you know, it's my favourite job. You know, without a doubt, I love being a mom. So yeah, but then I get to do all this other great stuff in my consultancy world as well, working for co-creation, and I've been a consultant for 14 years now.
Wow.
I know, it's a long time. And then I was in the banking world before that, so using a lot of that time I either was a leader or now spent a lot of time consulting in that space, or developing and shaping leaders, particularly through change and culture. Yeah, and it's been great.
What one item can you not do without?
Like anything in life. Honestly, I wish it wasn't, but it's probably my phone. Why? I don't want it to be. And I go and try lots of things, you know, where we go, I'm going to have that time out, and then I can't. So, but it's not really an item, but I'd like it to be, but that's what it is. Those are really good questions. I'm going to ask you the same. So who are you then, Lee?
So I am a guy that doesn't take myself too seriously. Probably do lots of things and flit around. So like I say, I'm on the radio. I'm doing a fitness program. Again, I've done one previously called Fitter for 40. So I lost 4 stone, 4 pounds in a year to get back down to my BMI. I subsequently had a back operation, and I've put lots of that back on. So I'm on a like Fitter for 40s, not 40. You know, when it's a bit harder. But I've started to then, only this week actually, but I've started to get my mojo. I've got myself on a 3D scanner to look at how terrible my body looks and all that sort of stuff. But it's given me the incentive to go, you've been here before, you can do it, just go and do it again.
Yeah.
And you know what, when we were coming, before the recording today, my sister rang me.
Yes.
And she said, Lee, thank you so much, like, it's been really inspiring seeing you doing your stuff again. I really need to get myself in shape. Right, and I was like, wow, like, if that's one person, and, you know, somebody who's one of the most important people in my life, to have the tiniest fraction of then it's been worth it already.
Yeah. Totally.
And I'm not doing it for that. Actually, I'm doing it for me now, not anybody else. I'm doing it for me, to be around longer as a dad and as a husband. That's kind of the focus. But actually, I remember a guy last time who said, I saw your stuff, he never commented, he never liked it, but it's not about likes and comments. He said, you made me change my life around.
Wow.
And to this day, he's still doing 10Ks, marathons, half marathons, and he is fit as a butcher's dog, and he's maintained it. I didn't maintain it. And he rang me up one day and he said, thanks, because actually what you did and put it out there really inspired me to go and do it. And I had a word with myself, and there's lots of people doing it. It's not. I'm not saying I'm any better, worse than anyone else. It's just a personal thing that I relate to, and that's why goal setting has to be part of some of the stuff we took from a leadership point of view. Only because when you know it really intrinsically from self first,
yes,
and I think self-awareness is so vital. It's saying, well, what does it then look like?
Yeah.
When you apply it in the real world, because this should be about being real world people. I am kind, I am a compassionate person, I'm an empath, I am messy.
Well, this
I
is messy.
am a little bit chaotic at times. I love to chat, I'll be mowing the lawn and there'll be neighbours that walk past and my wife's like, why is it taking you 2 hours to mow the lawn? And it's because I'll stop
Can't
and
believe it. Can't believe it.
So yeah, I try and just be fun, and I am a positive guy. 9 times out of 10, and we all have our off days, right? But I've switched to be positive psychology because I think it serves me well. When I was a kid, I was really negative on like what I'd not done right or trying to be perfect at stuff. And I realised I had just too many weaknesses, and I then focused on, well, what are you like half decent at? And actually, from a leadership point of view, that's the thing that pays the bills.
Yeah.
Like, what are you good at, and how can you leverage that, rather than spend all your time on the stuff that you're rubbish at that doesn't serve you. So that's the kind of simple way of looking at it.
I love that. I think we've got lots in common there. Lots of good things that resonate. But we're talking about self-awareness, I totally get it. And I think it's a journey, isn't it? And people, I know everyone goes like journey, but people hit it when they're ready to go, yeah, actually, I'm ready to look in the mirror and see some of that stuff. But if we were going back and looking at your teenage self, what would they think of you as a leader? What would teenage Lee say?
He'd be amazed.
Would he?
Yeah. I think he'd be, and this probably sounds arrogant, right? But he'd probably be quite proud, because there was nothing. I mean, I captain football teams or I run a business when I was at high school, giving candles out to dignitaries after the Warrington bombing. Wow. And I did a speech to Terry Waite, but never in my wildest dreams would I go, you're leading your own organisation and you're supporting other people. Like, that just wouldn't have been a thing. Even going to university, I was the first person in my family to go to university.
Wow, yeah.
I still am, I think, and then gone and done 2 degrees. And I'm not saying that's bigger or better than anyone else, but that was just unheard of.
Yeah.
So I've got this thing around courage and being courageous, and I think sometimes it's about backing yourself to go and do things, and it can be scary, and like we all get the the imposter syndrome and the what ifs, but actually well, take a leap of faith. And I've got this thing, I am a Christian, I do follow faith, and everyone that has their own beliefs is I'm cool if that's what they believe in. But I have this thing about faithful and fearless.
Nice.
And it really, that's kind of a mantra for what I live by. Be authentic, be kind, but back yourself and back other people. And then the fear, lots of people spend time and worrying about what might happen, and it never comes to fruition. So it's like, that's a waste of energy.
Yeah, totally. That's so good. So that's what they think. Wow, that's really nice. What would you think was messy? So in your leadership journey, we'll talk about that in particular. Where were the messy bits?
I've taken 10 grand pay cuts to do jobs where I'd gone into a role and I wasn't quite ready. Subsequently, then rather than leave the organisation, I've gone, actually, no, I need to go and earn my stripes in that field. So particularly when I was transitioning from the business, the operations, into then the HR, L&D world, I definitely did that. So from a talent perspective, I took on a talent program leader role, and then ultimately I wasn't quite ready, and then my manager left, and there was just this void then to reporting into HR director. If I was at HR director, there's no way I would have employed me at that time doing that role. And I recognise that, and I can be honest and true to myself, but it was like, go and earn your stripes. You know, and I think in today's world particularly, it's a great reminder, and I love working with young people.
Yeah.
But there are things, you know, we live in this immediate world now, don't we?
Yeah, totally.
Where we want instant success, we want likes, we want money, YouTube, like whatever the thing is. Where actually there's a real thing that stood the test of time about learning your skill or your trade, having knocks, getting back up, learning how to pivot and being agile and all those buzz phrases I said we wouldn't use, but journey, like be true to yourself, but don't like be humble enough to learn along the way and know where you're not showing up well.
Yeah.
Or that you're having a negative impact on others, or you're not showing up for yourself. More importantly, you know, are you being too hard on yourself? So like self-care and inner talk is really important.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. That's really inspiring, Lee. I love what you're saying, and you know, and that's what we're here to talk about. You know, some of these messy moments where it's all gone up.
And honestly, so let's be real about this, right? So, when I was teaching, you know, my stepdad took his own life. I took the decision to come out, right, because I didn't want to impact a kid negatively. That's a massive. If you've done a 3-year degree and you've got, you know, my mum was thrilled to bits I'd gone and done a degree.
Yeah.
She was reading with the kids in school. That was the best thing that she'd ever done. In my class, like Sir, Mr. Rogers, you know, seeing kids that then come and. Well, what I did is I found a way to still work with kids. So I'm like now a trustee of a charity.
Yeah.
And that gives me joy. When I was at church, I was a youth leader. That gives me joy because kids want to be there.
Of course they do, yeah.
When I was a coach in America, kids want to be there. They love it. They get real joy. So they're the things. It's like, how do you navigate? And I quite like that. How do you navigate what you're doing? But I've had lots of things where I've been rubbish. I've not been good enough. And you know, even my last role as a leader, it was really tough. And there was lots of things that I would now do differently.
Yeah.
But it's as Brené Brown says, right? Is like you've got to be in the arena.
Yeah.
To judge. I don't think it was Roosevelt who came up with the quote, but that always sticks with me. You know, and then I guess clear is kind.
Yeah.
Unclear is
a
unkind.
Big message. Yeah.
And those things, like the more clarity, the more human, the more honest we can be, the better it is for people. Because I don't think, like, feedback is we'll definitely use this as one of the things, but feedback people really struggle with, right? Because if I don't trust you, I'm not going to go there and criticise you. Typically,
no, totally.
Right? But if I trust you, then I'll give you it as I see it, and I'll trust that you can still respond, but then it's done in an open way. I always remember a guy, Andy Hollingworth, is a great guy, and we filmed a recording on a Friday afternoon that we were promoting a leadership program that we'd co-designed, and we'd not worked together that long, and he just said, let's have another go on that on Monday. And I was like, and the penny dropped in that moment. I was like, that's amazing. That's the secret sauce that we need, because he was right.
Yeah.
It was that Friday, that Friday afternoon lull where you're like, bit working from home, but it'd been a long week. It wasn't what we needed to put out. It was certainly not the energy. It wasn't promoting the video, the program very well. I was like, this is something genius, because now, in a really compassionate way, we can go there and we can bounce off each other and critique where we need to, or give people nudges.
Absolutely, and that's definitely going to be a topic. One of the things, focusing in on culture, that is a big thing that I've noticed time and time again. And I have my own belief around that. That clarity is kind. And having that perspective that I've been in the cultures, and I've seen that where particular individuals are being talked about, and there's negative feedback, or they're being side moved, and they have no idea, and maybe the behaviour isn't the right behaviour, but you're taking away their choice. We take away people's choice when we don't choose to be brave and give feedback. But there's lots of things around that. It's not easy. And intention, how do you do that with the right intentions? When do you do it? You know, do you do it for your own gain? It can't be. If you're going to give feedback and it's for your own gain, or for something that, you know, doesn't sit well with you, but it doesn't really matter to them, it's not going to land. So there's so many things you need to think about. But the biggest guiding light for me is, if I don't tell them this, if we don't share this, is this going to take away their choices? Because they can't choose to be better. They can't choose to do something different. And it's really hard to receive that on that end as well, you know, to go, right, I can make a choice here. But it's always the most empowering way. Give people that opportunity to make a choice. And that can be, I don't really want to hear that. That's a choice. But at least we've given them a choice. So I think it's really important. And definitely one of those topics. So on those topics, because we talked about this a lot, is we said we're going to bring the ones that maybe not necessarily are the book topics or things that everybody's talking about. So what would you like to bring? What are those kind of topics that you're willing to talk about, Lee?
For me, and I've seen it and I've experienced it on a few courses, right, and I've certainly done it with teams and individuals, it's this thing around authenticity.
Yeah.
It's taking off the mask, and it's being really true to yourself. And when you're in situations, that can be really challenging and really tough because of the fear of consequences. Yeah. So I go back to the mantra of faithful and fearless. I've seen it and I've done it, and whether you come out with shining lights or whether you fall over and you get wrapped around the knuckles, or in inverted commas, or whether it's a part of the ways, you've still been true to yourself. So I think that's something I genuinely want to explore. And let me just tell you a quick story about that, right? And why it's so important for me. I once was really lucky to go to Chambly on a wellbeing retreat.
Where's that?
In France.
In France.
So we'd done, and near the Swiss Alps, and we'd done I was a founder of the Wellbeing Foundation, a previous organisation, and I was genuinely really lucky. And I was I was the more junior of this group.
Yes.
And we talked about, the instructor said, what do you want to get out of this?
Yes.
So everyone went round the room in a circle and said what they wanted to get out of it. And I remember listening to what all the responses were and the answers were. And I'd already wrote mine on the plane, because I really thought about, actually, why am I here? What do I want to get out of it? I was kind of in that zone. And I talked about wanting to deal with loss once and for all. I was thinking about my relationship with food. I was thinking about, how can I be true to myself and how can I improve as a leader? Like, there was like big chunky stuff, because it was that dedicated time, and I'm going, this is a real privilege. And I shared that with the group, and there was a guy who started off and he went, can we start again?
Yeah.
And there was something really powerful for me in that, in terms of, I've just been myself, I've just shown up as me, and I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong, but I'm just going to go with it. And my answer didn't fit what everyone else had really said, but everyone went round, and it was a group of execs went round again, and every single one of them changed their answer. So, and to get to that point, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in future episodes, it's hard work. Like, how do you get to that point? And why is that important? Well, that's important for me in terms of performance, how you show up as a leader, role modelling, behaviours, culture, the idea that culture is the lowest behaviour tolerated, all that sort of stuff. That's why it's important. And I think it's the small stuff, day in and day out.
Yeah.
And until you can do that, until you're true to yourself, and we can all lie about ourselves to ourselves, sort of thing, until you can be true to yourself, look yourself in the mirror and go, I was out of order, I shouldn't have reacted that way, I was a bad parent in that moment. As a leader, would I ever do that again? Absolutely not. Was I organised enough? Did I let let someone down. And this isn't just, in a leadership role or a leadership position. It's in life.
Absolutely.
There's no point being the best leader in the world and then the most rubbish husband or the poorest dad.
No.
And I often see it as, or think of it as like a triumvirate. And I've pinched that phrase off a great friend, Jane Garnsey, but she always talked about the triumvirate, so career, marriage, parent type thing. And she almost saw it as like you'd give to one and it'd distort the other two, and you then need to kind of chase the circle. But the important thing was to know where you were in a given moment.
Yeah.
And that's about being present and understanding and knowing yourself.
Great. Well, they look like great topics to explore as we go forward.
What about for you? What lights you up in this space? And I know you'll bring masses, right? But what's the...
Well, I think the things I'd like to explore over and above some of those really good core topics, like what does enjoyment look like at work? It's really important, but we probably don't spend enough of that. What does that look like? And connection. Being part of something and belonging, I think a real part of culture. Focusing on, I see a lot of great values and behaviours written down, but culture, leadership is about what you do, not what you say. So how do we know that? How do we get underneath some of that says it's the unwritten rules? Where people just don't want to be a leader, I like the hard bits. Let's look at the hard bits. I'm really passionate about female leadership. I love all broad, but I still see a lot of senior execs where females are in limited resources and actually are not their authentic self. So being authentic, but bringing your whole self to work, I think is really important, as you talked about. And I am passionate about people being over busy. This whole condition of busyness. So we wear it like a badge of honour that says, anyone says, how are you? What do you say? I'm busy. I'm really busy. I'm really, really busy. It's kind of like, and who's busy enough? We don't go, I'm quite balanced and everything's all, tickety-boo, Very rarely do we do that. And if we do, we think, well, they're not doing enough work, aren't they? But actually, how do we turn that on its head? And what do those sort of things mean? I think we talked a lot about toxic masculinity. Mm. So there's a lot, there's some talk about that and caused, a lot of conversation. And how do we, deal with that moving forward? So I think there's lots of stuff in there, fun stuff, and then maybe some of that ground stuff where people just go, have we talked about it enough, or are we really dealing with that?
And sometimes it's really hard to have some of those conversations, isn't it? Toxic masculinity is really tough, and we go, is it a society issue or is it a workplace issue? Well, the truth is probably somewhere in between, right? It's both, because what happens in society is a mirror of what happens in the workplace. So, and lots of topics around that. Lots of topics, particularly in the ED&I B agenda.
Yes.
There's tons, and there's there's specialists and people far greater than I. But what I do find is like having the conversations, being courageous enough to have the conversations. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. But doing the work is important so that you can ultimately do your very best work on the things you focused on. The idea that people don't need to do the side work in order to perform at their best on the focus stuff, it just doesn't work in my mind, because actually there's so many other barriers and things that are coming to try and grab you that if they're unchecked, just become a stranglehold on actually focusing on what you should do.
Totally. And let's have, some nice perspective about it as well. I think the world is a bit too serious at the moment. So
do you want to laugh as well?
I want to laugh as well, Lee. Come on.
Remind me of that.
I know we've got quite serious, haven't we, in this one?
We have.
But what's coming up? What are we going to do next, do you think?
So we've got a brilliant guest on talking about squiggly careers. That's the way I think of it.
Good way. I love it.
Michelle, co-creation. I know she's got her own consultancy as well. So really looking forward to that, because actually she's just a bit of a mind guru, and she's got tons of advice, but she's also really authentic and just human. She says it as it is, and I love that about Michelle.
Yeah, one of the best. So I can't wait for that one. So we're going to do another one?
Yeah, absolutely. We are.
Absolutely, I'm going to wear this.
Oh yeah, this is the uniform,
Absolutely, because it's leadership actually, not love.
It's not love.
So yeah, look forward. Thank you, Lee, for the coming up with the idea, and thank you for listening. It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, and we'll hopefully see you next time.
See you next time.